Hi folks, welcome to Reloved Guitars. What we've got here today is an Alvarez acoustic, and it's a Parlour style acoustic, and it's a beautiful looking thing, but it sounds really dead and the action is way too high. So what I'm going to do with it today, pardon me, is I'm going to make a reduction on the thingies here on the saddle. There's quite a lot of good break angle available to us, and that's because Alvarez has done a very clever thing here. They have set, as you can see, the saddles, the pegs down in a separate level below the saddle, and that, unlike if that had been up at the same plane as the saddle, you'd have far less break angle to work with. So they've given the owner a bit of leeway, which is great, because the action down here is pretty sky high. Now the reason why this is, as a Parlour guitar, it's, well, you know, it's got bracing and everything in there like you'd expect, but it's clearly changing shape over the years. And one of the things that I noticed about this straight away is there's quite a pronounced bellying off the top here, almost certainly due to loading of the strings over all that time. And it has a truss rod in the neck. It's also got a ton of relief in there, which we can take out as well. So I'm going to reduce the action here. This nut is horrible. It's not doing anything. You can turn the tuners and it holds the strings until it finally gives up. It's an unusually wide one, so I'm going to look at replacing it with the Martin style one. The Martin style one has a slight little flange here, but even on its hold on a sec. Even on its narrow edge, I think it might just be about the right width. I can just tweak it into the right shape. Yeah, 44.5, so that's nearly 45, which is what I was aiming for. So it's the best choice of the nuts, and it also happens to have the same spacing, which is really important. You don't want to change the spacing. This is a wide spaced thing. So that's our tusk nut. We've got some phosphor bronze acoustic strings, D'Addario, to go on here. These are about as dead as you could ever hear on an acoustic. They sound like a classical guitar. Well, they don't, but you know, they're not far off. So it's at the moment, it's hard to say what it sounds like, because from initial playing it has got a nice-ish tone, but it's very thuddy at the moment. Now I know some people will probably very much like that tone. I know some people hate new strings and so on, but we are going to make it more playable. So with something like this, where the tail end action, the bridge action, if you like, is so high, we need to take care of the biggest variable first, really. So with this, I think we've got to get this down to a workable height. So what I'm going to do to begin with is we're going to need to remove this. Now I've done some calculations and some measurements already, and they look like so. We've got currently we've got 0.6 of a mil first fret on the high E, 0.9 of a mil, nearly a millimeter on the low. That's going to come down as we bring this action down, so I'm not going to attack that. We've got a lot of deflection on the top here. Who knows exactly how flat it's meant to be? No manufacturers ever seem to reveal that information, but there's a good 7.5 millimeters either side, on both sides I should say. No, either side, but a total of 15 if you kind of measure it on one side only. If you let it tilt it up and measure, but the deflection is on each side about 7.5 away from horizontal, so that's quite a lot of belly. Well, I've looked into this as much as I could find out about, you know, asking Google how much radius is in a guitar top really, and the nearest I got to one credible answer was I think it's a guy gave something like a 300 inch radius or something like that. It came out something like 25 foot radius, not inch, 25 foot. So you can see it's not anywhere near like that. A 25 foot radius is almost indistinguishable from flat. So if that was what this manufacturer, and it was a boutique manufacturer, this manufacturer was they were describing their guitar tops as not completely flat because it had a 25-foot radius in it, then this kind of bellying is quite a long way from that, even though we don't have a reference point for this type of guitar. So, but we've got what we've got, and we need to get the action down. And sometimes what people sort of, I don't know, sometimes you hear comments that seem to fight with reality, and what they say is, well, it's meant to have that. Well, okay, is it meant to have let's have a look, 4.1 millimeter action here? Well, yes, no. Well, how am I supposed to adjust it? Well, on there, that's it. That's your lot. So is that how it's meant to be? Is that what a guitarist is supposed to be happy with? Well, it's clearly not. We all know that somehow it's come out with a better action than that at some point. And we all truthfully know it's changed. So what has changed? Well, the only thing that can change is that this neck is pushing into the body and raising up at this end, relatively speaking, which flares, or if you like, pushes this side in, pulls that bottom side out, and also pulls on the bridge, which is trying to rotate, and so it pulls a bit of a bulge into here. There are all kinds of stresses, but what they are clearly adding up to between them all is an action that if you went into the shop and said, "Hi, this is my beautiful Alvarez Parlour guitar. Yeah, sit down, sir, and try it." You'd sit down and you go, "No, I can't play that. Literally can't play that." And the shop assistant would say, "Well, you could adjust your truss rod, sir." And I go, "Well, yeah, okay, I could take a tiny bit of the height out around about this part, but that's it." And then he'd say, "Well, then our techs could take a bit off there for you, sir." And you go, "And what happens when you've taken that off?" You're stuck. And that's the truth about guitars, acoustic guitars. They change shape, and they change shape. Some people will have you believe it's all because of humidity, and it's, I have had a message from somebody whose guitar was falling to bits, and the manufacturer, or the seller actually, immediately said, "Oh, it's humidity. It's been too much humidity," and there was no way that humidity was going to cause this ridiculously high action just like that. Now it's true that if the wood is soaked, it's really, really damp. I've been in a wet attic for 20 years. It can absorb moisture and it will belly up. And if you dry it out, the tendency is that the wood then flattens down, because when it's absorbing moisture, it expands and it's got nowhere to go, so it rises. When it dries out, it tends to shrink back to its original shape, and if you dry it out too much, it pulls apart and splits. But this is Great Britain. The average home humidity is about 55, and the recommended range is around about, for guitars, is around about 45 to 55 relative humidity. So even for most people in Britain, and an average house is not that far out of the comfortable range. You don't expect, certainly a guitar that's kept in a case like this, you don't expect it in a British household, you don't expect it to be so drenched with water that it's bellied up this way. That isn't to say you couldn't flatten this out with, or couldn't improve it slightly with some dehumidification, but it's an unknown factor. So I would always recommend to people to keep it in the 45 to 55 range humidity if you can, and in the meantime we'll make an adjustment here, and if you find that over time you're keeping it in 45 to 55 causes it to flatten out, I'll bet you it won't, but I'd be happy if it did, or happier if it did, and then we find this is suddenly too low. Well, great, we'll put a new saddle in. That's easy to do, cheap relatively, and easy to do. So anyway, that's just one of those things. So here we are with a pretty little guitar with, at the moment, it's about as unplayable as your average classical guitar. By the way, just one thing, I was just looking at a comment, or just I zapped a comment on YouTube. On my YouTube channel, I do say that I welcome comments, and I welcome even people who disagree with, or have find that what I do they don't agree with, and they want to put another position. But what I don't accept is people being abusive, or I don't have time for people being rude and trying to score points just because it makes them feel better. So surprise, surprise, if it's my channel and it's my Facebook page and so on, I have a behavioural norm which I'm going to stick to, and I won't treat people like that, and I won't be treated like that. So if you come onto my YouTube, and if you're watching this now and you think I posted a critical comment just recently and I can't see it, or nobody's responding to it, it's because I will have pressed hide user from channel, okay? And if I've hid user from channel, that's tough shit, because it says clearly, do not welcome point scoring critical comments that don't add anything to the discussion. So you're welcome to say you think I'm spraying too close up to my workpiece, but look at this, what a monstrosity of a spray job that is. Look, God, that's horrible. Who would want one of those for a couple of, or an hour's spraying a few coats of paint? Don't mind the imperfections underneath the wood, but just in a workable finish, who would want that? It's awful, isn't it? So you can disagree and say it's a terrible way to spray things, but then tacking on that I shouldn't talk so much because good videos, people don't talk, they shut up and get on with it, or something like that. That's not a constructive comment, really, that I'm really can be bothered to leave on my site. So you've been warned. You can disagree, but don't be rude, because I don't live in a world of rudeness, and you might, and you're welcome to go and stay there, because it isn't a place I want to be. Got it? Anyhow, so let's get going with this. I've got probably a limited battery life on this phone of mine at the moment. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to slack off the strings, and we're going to get out the thing, because I've done some measurements, and I can tell you that to get down to the target ideal action that I would like, let's see which way this is going to turn. I want to go that way. Wrong way. To get down to the target action I would like, I'll go through it in a minute, how much I'd need to work out, or take off, I should say. Now these open, pretty gold-looking tuners, I think sometimes people look at these types of tuners and think, oh, they're really cheap. Look, there's nothing but a gear and some, winding, bushing thread. That's it, a gear and a thread. That's rubbish. Well, interestingly enough, that's all they need to be, and that's all most of your top quality inverted commas tuners are as well. So there's no clever thing, they're just sealed and you don't see it. Now on some of them the gearing is smaller, bigger teeth, smaller teeth, whatever. You turn more for less result, but it's more controlled. It feels more controlled, and you're paying for slightly better gearing than you've got on this one, for example. Anyway, but this is a perfectly good tuner. The reason it doesn't feel like it's a good tuner at the moment is because of this nut, which really is holding these strings in place a bit. It's not the end of the world, but it's not good. Okay, so look, we've got our bone 4 and 2 compensated saddle, and to get to the target action that I wanted, we would have to take off from the saddle. We would have to take off from the high frequency, the high E end 2.8 millimeters, and from the base end 2.25, which is, you might think, oh, that's a bit strange, why it's less although the action's higher. Well, it's true, but we want to end up with a higher action on the base side anyway. That's the deal. So what did I say? Yeah, we're aiming to end up with 2.5 and 1.75, and to get there we'd take 2.8 and 2.25. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide that in two. So we'll have two stages, and we're going to have on the treble side and the bass side, our ultimate one is 2.8 and it's 2.25, and then this is going to be 1.4, and this is going to be 22 is 11, 1.1, 1.12, okay, yeah, something like that, 2.5. So that gives us a halfway point, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all go on the treble side. I'm going to mark 2.8 and 2.25. Now this is only a visual thing. This isn't going to be the exact, it's not going to be the most accurate thing in the world. So the reason, what I mean by that is that if I start and put a mark on here at the treble side of 2.8, I'm going to just scratch it into there a little bit. It's actually quite hard to see that. Blimey, it's hard to see. I just need to be able to see it. Bright lights, please. It's difficult to see. 2.8 and 2.25. This is the total off both sides. The 2.25 is, no, I've done it wrong, haven't I? Come on, Samuel. Base side is 2. Oh no, that's right. Base side is 2.25. I got it right. Okay, there's my 2.25 mark. So this would be the full extent if I was trusting that I could take the full amount. Now you can tell straight away that I'm not completely confident that I can take the full amount away and leave either enough break angle for the guitar to play properly. So I'm not trusting that that's possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 lines, scratch 2 lines. One is going to be the kind of full amount, and the other is going to be half the amount. And I will use something hopefully to do that. So we've got bass side a bit less than the treble side, right? So if I had a very fine marker pen, I could probably do this better. Let's see if we've got a sharp pencil. We do. Let's see what we can make. Let's try a couple of things. I want to do it both ways. I want to make a line, but the problem is we don't have a lot of movement. Let's borrow another one from here a minute, just to hold it up. Slightly the wrong size, but it might give me a bit better position. Right. It's a bone is a very slippery subject, so it's hard to get this thing lined up and do make a mark. Okay, so this looks taller at this end, which is correct. That's the treble end. Taller at the treble end. If I can get it to stay in one place for long enough. That's moved a bit. That's probably not the most reliable line I've ever drawn in my life. It's not the worst. So you can see I can get a little bit of pencil thingy in there. So I'm going to do as a visual, I'm going to do the halfway mark. So on the bass side, or on the treble side, I'm going to do 1.4 and draw another line. And the reason I'm just doing this half and half is because what I really want to do is stop halfway and check. Never go all the way in one go. Like I said, the constraints really are mainly whether we've got the break angle. Then on the bass side we've got 1.12. Yeah, we have to be careful that we don't end up taking away the required break angle to make this thing play. Okay, make a little mark there. So this point doesn't have to be ultra precise. I could probably do with a piece of something on there. A piece of tape on there wouldn't hurt, just to keep it still. Double-sided would probably work, but hey. Where am I going to put it? Right up to the edge? Brains. I suppose so. Think. Stop back from the edge of fraction. All right, that's probably a bit more grippy. So we're going to treble end down here, which we know is also a little bit higher than the bass end. So it's a little bit of a what's that word? Gradient. Slope. Okay, so I've got two lines now showing up. See that? See that? See that? Hello. That's not very good at zooming in or anything. Well, there are some lines there. I can see them. Right, go back and look down like normal. Okay, so there are my two marks. So what I want to do is make sure I can see them. So what I'm going to do is move these things out of the way. I'm going to get my sanding what's it out. Oh, there's a bit of measurement I've got to do first. You move back a little bit if you can, please. Thank you very much. Tiny bit measuring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the start point, and I'm going to do it at a given point. So if I can see a notch on there, let's measure it on that notch. Let's measure it on the high E notch. Okay, so on the high E side, we're going to measure 7.14, 7.14, and on the bass side, we're going to measure 7.95. 7.95. Okay, so we're going to go down in two steps from there. So the first step we're going to do in green, and the second step we're going to do in red. So the first step on the treble side will be, we want to stop after removing 1.5. So 7.14, I better get my calculator, 7.14 minus 7.14 minus 1.4. It's probably easy for you to do it in your head, but I'm not going to run the risk. So calculator, clear. 7.14 minus treble 1.4. 1.4, my first chunk is 5.74. So 5.74 is my first stage there. And then minus the other 1.4 is 4.34. That would be my ideal taking it all away target. On this side we've got 7.95 minus 1.12. 7.95 minus 1.12. So we've got 6.83 first stage, and then after that we've got minus 1.12 again, equals 5.71 as that final stop destination. Right, so even I'm not going to trust the lines I've drawn on there, they're just guidelines, literally guidelines. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure to make sure I know where I'm at, that I'm at the right place. So first of all, I'm going to get me this here, and so I'm basically starting off with the treble side coming down more than the bass side. So I'm going to start by putting some extra pressure on the bass side, the treble side, while pressing down. Now, good quality bone nuts take quite a long time to sand down, but what we'll do is we'll get it down a bit on the treble side, and then we'll kind of balance it out across the whole lot. So I'm visually sort of aiming towards my first marker, and as I'm doing this, the whole point will be to ensure that we get a vertical, or we want there to be 90 degrees between the front side of the saddle and the bottom part. So a quick check on the treble side shows us to have, if I get the place right, now gives us on the mark, gives us 627 we started with 714, so we've taken a good chunk off there already, but we're still way off our first mark. Now I'm going to try and just spread out the whole, equalize the pressure, so we're taking about the same amount off, and we'll check both ends next. Now if I find that I'm going off in one side and I'm developing a lean, then we have to correct that, because to stand on top of the piezo element, we obviously want a nice 90-degree bottom, as it were, matron. Right, so we're on the bass side now, and the bass is now 751, so we're down 0.4, we've gone down half a mil on the bass side, and the treble side we're on 612, and we've gone down nearly a mil on that side, which is good. So half a mil and a mil, so I'm going to even them out now, continue evening them out. Okay, cutting pretty evenly. Let's have a look. Treble side, 598. We're nearly at our midpoint on the treble side, and we're on 719. We're not far off on the bass side as well, so let's keep going. Hard to hold it. There's probably a better device than this, but I've kind of got used to doing it manually. What we got, bass side 692, we're about a tenth of a mil away, and the treble side 574. We're actually on the mark on the treble side, so I'm just going to square up this a little bit. It's kind of leaning a tiny fraction, so I'm just going to square this up now. And squaring up becomes a matter of holding it at the right angle. The right angle. It's almost spot on. Okay, let's have a look what we got. It's hard to see the lines now. Okay, so bass side, we've got 663, we're just under, and on the treble side we're 568, and we're just under there. So let's have a look, or I'm now going to have a look at how these work out together. So I'll move me sanding board out the way for a minute. Then we bring the guitar back into play, and we reset our tuning what's it. Okay, that's just to bring them up to some tension. Okay, so that's, let's bring it to tension anyway, or to pitch, just so we can be sure. Come on, magnet. So, having done my first run, there's dust on there, don't worry about that. I'm now looking towards the brake angle over the saddle to see what we've got. I've realised I now need to take this off because I've hidden away my useful measuring things. Come on. Gorilla tape. So now we were on the base side, we are now 325 from 4.1. Okay, so 325 from 4.1. Where do I want to go to? I want to take what did I say? 325 for 4, so it's 0.9. 325, and I wanted to go to, what did I say? 2.5. So there's 325. So there's 0.75 left to go on the bass side. On the treble side, or as measured at the last fret, on the treble side, we're currently at 275, just over, or maybe 3. Okay. So we wanted to get down to 1.75. So we're down to 3, and we've got more to go. Now the problem, of course, is the constraints on the high E. And this is what I'm on the lookout for. So we've reduced it somewhat, and we've still got, I'm doing the colour now, not the zoom, thank you. So you can see we've still got a fairly good brake angle of the high E over the saddle, but what we're looking at is we're seeing how much space we've got. Well, there's at least another 2 mils there, and probably about 3.5 there. So the question is are we going to get to where we want to get whilst retaining a brake angle that plays? There's no other options for it. That's the downside. There's no other way around this. So let's have a quick look. So that's where we're at. These guitars will play at very, very small brake angles, and this is probably about, I'd guess, about 15, actually more than that, it's about 30, it's actually about 30 degrees. No. 25 degrees, something like that currently. It'll play at about 5 degrees, but the point is that the less brake angle you have, the less it's going to transmit its vibrations. It's losing its downforce on there. So just while we're at it, to get a better feel, let's take out some of this, some of this relief in the neck, and let's see what, I don't know what the particular hex key is in this one. I'm having a start-off guess at a 4mm, but it could be made in the USA, so it could well be a metric, imperial one, but it actually appears to be metric, so I'm getting fairly easy bite into it and tightening up. I didn't seat properly. So tightening it will flatten the neck a little bit more. It's going to take more than that. Okay. I'll leave that for a sec. It's a very long adjuster, a long travel. So that's a bit more tension in there. It's taking it down, but it's still quite a lot of relief still. I obviously don't have very good access to it like that. Okay, well, that's about 0.3. Well, it's much more playable already. So the thing is, we've got quite a lot of leeway on the bass side, as always. It's not a massive difference actually. I think they've done a good job staggering this the way they've done it. Okay, I'm going to do some more, and we're going to get the best we can out of it. Okay. Now, as you get lower into the on the saddle, it gets a little bit trickier to be sure you're pulling it out, because there's not so much to grip onto. Okay, so we have our measurements. I think, what do we can do? Right, so we can afford more on the bass side. I'm nervous about, I want to get this exactly right. Let's just check this a minute. Okay, I'm going to waste my time and your time. I'm going to remeasure these and recalculate just to be on the safe side. So make sure that's sitting down. I'm going to do all this up again. Sorry, got to be right. Okay, measure it and recalculate it. That's quite close. Ah. Okay. Let me. I'm going to rub these things out. I'm going to recalculate just to be sure. Okay, start all of this again. It's like measuring twice to be on the safe side. T1.4. There's my halves, my stages. I'll check it out. Right. Let's just get this down correct. So we are going high, low E. Let's start with high E. High E is coming up at 2.5. High E 2.5. High E, 2.5, 2.5, last fret. Saddle. Okay, high E, low E. Three, and then saddle. Okay, now if we were, I'll go back to still the target action. So can we do 2.5? Well, we'll see. So that's minus, we're still -1. And that is 1.4 at the saddle. 3 down to 2.5. Oh, is that 3 to 2.5, did I say? Oh, okay, we're only half a mil away then on this one. That's not so bad. Minus 0.5. That takes us to 0.5 times 1.4 is something easy. I'm a silly bugger, aren't I? I'm a silly bugger. 0.5, no, not divided. 0.5 times 1.4. You might wonder where the 1.4 is coming from. That's the approximate proportion of the distance between there and there. I know what I mean, 0.7. Okay, so at this rate in time, we're not too far away. That's why it played better. It actually measures better. Now we've got it tuned up. So yeah, we're not far away, but we need more off the treble side for it to work. And 1.4 is too much really to do it all the way. So I don't think we're going to do it at 1.4. I think we're going to, if we look at the amount of space here, we've got 1.7. We'd still be above the surface. So I think I'm going to need to be conservative. If we say let's go to 0.7 on each of them, that's half my desired improvement on the treble side, but I'm just conscious of the break angle basically on the high E. So I'm compromising on the high E, but we can go down a bit more on the low E. In other words, we can get closer to my ideal target on the low E than we can get close on the high E because of the break angle restriction. Right. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so put these out the way. Okay, so with this now we're going 0.7 and 0.7. So I'm going to look at my measurements again, and we'll also mark up the registration points I should call it, reference points. So on the treble side, where we've got most to do but we can't really do that much, we're going at 5.71 for starts, 571, and we're going to go on the bass side. We're registering 666, 666. Right. So 0.7 off there will take us down here to pretty much 5 dead on. That's our target for the treble side. Bass side, we're going to take the same, which is going to take us down to what do we say? Take off 0.7. It's going to be 6, 594. Let's call it 6 because it's just. Hang on a minute. It's just right. 666, and that takes us down to 6. Okay, 5 and 6. That's our target measurements. Bass 6, treble 5. And so the treble is currently sitting at 567, 570. Right. So same amount. So the equal pressure now on both sides. Equal pressure on both sides. Aim is to keep it as an upright thing. Upright 90-degree bottom, and basically just to now wear it down. And just checking, keep checking. Straight, flat, little lean towards the bass side there. So we've got on the bass side we've got 645 coming down. Treble side we've got 556 coming down. Need to square this up a bit. So lean back a bit. And move side to side rather than move my hands, because this way I can keep the angle absolutely steady. So I know that it's now nice 90 degrees. 621 we're coming down on the bass side, and we should be on 531. So we're coming down nicely. We need a bit more off the treble side, so I'm going to weight it on this hand a bit more and get it square and keep it square. Good. Treble side, 512, almost there. Bass side, 602, practically there. Right, a tiny bit more on the treble side, and everything should be good. Treble side, 504. Stopping there. That's as much as we're going to do. Right. So this will now appear strikingly low at the treble side, but it's okay. Okay. Yeah, not bad, not bad, not bad. We've got enough break angle. We've got as low an action as we're going to get there. Terrific. Right. Let's now manually slack off the. Let's give you a better view, shall we? Have a better view. We're going to do the nut next. Not so easy to get hold of the tuners in this position. Come on, off you go. So I'm doing all of the saddle work and nut work and stuff with the old strings on, which is always what happens. They hate winding and unwinding. I've actually done well to have them last as long as that. Even though they're going in the right direction, they still choose to break off like that because they've had enough going to and fro. Wow, grime on there. Okay, so a little tap. Hurrah. Easy, off it comes. All right, let's have a feel here. Actually, that's not too bad. It's hard to feel. Yeah, it's not bad at all. You could probably just round it off a tiny bit. So first of all, there's a little. Oh, I know what's wrong as well. That's why it's got a slope, which this doesn't have. Okay, I forgot that bit. So we're going to take the slope off. It shouldn't be that difficult to do. Let's mark it up if we can. Flat side. Please bear with me. There's the edge. Can I get this to how's this going to work? It's not, is it? Sorry about this. The Martin nut has a couple of distinguishing features. It has a flare on the ends because the Martin neck bends in a certain direction, and it also has a slope as well because the Martin doesn't have a shelf in the same way. It just goes straight back, so they just make the nut to accommodate that. Now to kick off with this, I am probably better off just putting this up to the watch me on the overhead camera, I'm going to just offer this up to this spinny thing, sanding thing. And I'm just going to take the bulk of it down towards flat. Sort of gets quite a bit of the material off there, and then the aim now will be to basically just square this up first on the sanding block. Sorry about this, the view has gone funny. I'll come back obviously when we're ready to size it up and put it on, but first thing is to stay there. First thing will be to sand this nice and flat to get it to sit at a right angle. So I'm going to do the same sort of same approach, starting off with it pointing at me vertically. Obviously that's a guess, but it tends to work out pretty well. Close, but not close enough. Nearly there. We've got a bit of more to do on this end. Okay. So basically, that's given us a flat-bottomed girls. Go on there like that. See up close to there. It's looking quite good. Probably a bit tall at the treble end still. We shall see. So just going to put that down for a second. Have a quick line up on here, making sure that I want to make sure that the end of the slot here is as clean as it can be. It's quite often you'll get quite a bit of crunchy glue still there. So I'm just trying to remove the obvious stuff. So then we offer that up to there. So what I'm going to do is just have a quick looky feel. See how that lines up. It's going to be, oops, we're missing a string, aren't we? I'll find one from somewhere. So that's obviously, or it will be too tall. That's fine. But what I'll do is we'll remove this one. We'll find another string from somewhere. A spare something or other, if we can. Obviously I don't want to ruin a pack of, ooh, look at that green stuff. Yuck. Let's see if I've got some. I think these might be ultra short length things from a. No, we might get away with it. They are short, but they're not too short. Where's the thinnest one? It's that one. Thank you. It's not perfect gauge or whatever, but it's small enough to wind on. I mean, there's enough. It's small enough to do the job to mimic the high E of this set, and good enough to go on to the winder, just so I can get the do the what am I thinking? Oh yeah, the nut slots. Right. So I'm just going to hold this here. I'm going to try and get this to. It's very difficult to do it with the wrong hand, if you see what I mean. What I don't want is for it to come popping out. I can get quite a lot of slippage if you're not careful, but this should be alright. I'm going to put this on to do up if I can. Other way, maybe? Yeah. Something like that. Okay. Sorry. Things in my eye. Okay. So, I'm going to tune up, and then I'm going to measure the first fret actions to see what we need to take away. So much better than the bone, I tell you. Okay, so now what I'm interested in is what the outstanding height over the first fret is, and we can just take that down as much as we can off the bottom, which would be the right way to do it, ideal way. So we're probably going to be at about 0.8 or something, let's say 0.8. Oh, 0.9 there, 0.9 then. Okay, 1 mil. That's quite a lot still. That's good because that tells me we've still got 0.7 to go. Okay, that's that's nearly a mil there, almost. That's a bit less. So 1 mil at the treble side, and what are we going for? We want 1 mil at the treble side. 80, possibly 90. Really? 90 mil and a mil and 90. So this is the nut. Here we go. We're on the treble side. 1 mil and 0.90. So this is want to come down 0.7 at the nut, and this wants to come down. Let me just wipe this off. That's down minus 0.7, and this is going to be minus 0.6 on there. And so the actual measurement. Oh God! Right, we still have to do this again. Never mind. Now what we do is we hook that out the way, and so, and we measure this up now in a similar style to before. So in the treble slot, or the high E slot, we measure up and we get 8.4 as our start reference measurement, and then in the bass E we have 775. So we take 0.6 off that, equals 715. Target on the bass side. 0.7 off that equals 7.7. equals 7.7, 7.5 and 7.7. That's the target, and it's about the same amount of each, a tiny bit more on the treble side. So we keep our measuring thing, get our sanding thing back. We're nearly there now. Okay. We're taking off 0.7 and 0.6, so a little bit more on the treble side. So I'm going to put a bit more pressure on there. 0.7, 0.6, and there our target is 7.7 and 7.15. So a bit of a heavier press down on the treble side. Now I'm going to straighten it up again. Okay, let's have a quick look. Don't know what's happening with the battery. It wouldn't surprise me if we conk out any minute now. But so target action is starting with 0. Target action high E. We are on 7.9, so we're 0.2 away. Here we're on 7.6. Oh, we're a bit more away on the bass side now. Okay, so a bit more pressure on the bass side. Okay, treble side, target was 7.7, we're on 7.93. Bass side target was 7.15, we're still good. Check the squareness, we're still pretty good. Let's keep it going. Not too much pressure now, just keep it in the same plane if we can. Again, stop and check the squareness. Need to lean forward a bit next go. And we're on treble side 7.7. We're about 1/10. Here 7.29. We're a tenth as well. So we need to lean this forward very slightly now, just to square this up. Pretty alright, I think. Of course, it's guessing. I'm assuming that nut shelf is perfectly squared off, and it should be. Okay, 7. We're down on the treble side. We're down a bit. Whoops. On the side 7.2, we're on the right amount there. Let's see what we get. Very easy to overcut it at this point, and I may have to boost one side or the other slightly, but it's quite difficult to do. thub, thub, thub. Oh, very nice and low. Blimey, that's almost perfect. Let's tune it up. That is about as good as we're going to get. Let's see what the battery's doing. You still with us? Ooh, 45, 46, 47. Yes. Okay. I'm going to take... Oh, no. I'm going to slack this off again. I'm going to glue this on. Drop it on. That's very, very perfect. Extremely low. So what I want to do is just get the strings off enough to move them so I can glue the nut in place and get the strings back on to hold the nut in place. Now what I might do, just for out of interestness sake, I might put two tiny thin bits of this, what do you call it, this copper foil up at the treble end. I just want to lift only the treble end just a tiny, I mean we're talking so much of a fraction you won't even notice it, but it gives me just that little bit of comfort and reassurance back. So I'm not going to do it from that end, silly me. Put that there, put that there. I'm going to do it from there to there. And there to there, like so. Okay, and that is a minuscule whiff. I don't know how many hundredths of a mil that is, but it's absolutely tiny. But it just gives me a tiny little bit extra lift on the side where I was marginal. It was playing fine, but I know it was so slightly down. Oh, the super glue sticks itself to its bottle, and that's the end of it. I seem to spend tons of money on super glue that often never gets used because it just dries up before I get a chance to use it. Okay, so now I'm going to put this there, like so. Something's getting in my mouth, which is really annoying me. So I always like to get this on and line it up in place before the glue sets, but we don't often have the luxury of that much time. There we go. Put it on there. One more go before we take the strings off. Much better, much better. Lovely low action. Right, I'm happy with that. So finally, here come these filthy old strings. Alrighty. So after all of that, we are now at the time to cut off the deadly strings, and I'm going to wash my hands after this because they are really filthy. So I'm going to gently lift off the peg, lift out the pegs at the back, place them over here, and we'll get rid of all these evil strings. I've got some spare strings over here which are now no longer a set, so I'll get rid of them as well. It'll take a bit of time to pull off these ones off the pegs, but there we go. That is the, see this? It's a bit annoying. Now, the great thing about acoustic guitars, usually, famous last words, is that you can normally set them up and lower the action without running into fret problems. Now I say normally because a Martin I did for Chris last week was an exception to that rule, and it was so because it had a really incredibly low spot on the neck, which I guess pretty much showed up mostly under compression, so when the neck was loaded with strings, and really without that you couldn't tell, you couldn't really see it, but when leveling there were two frets that were completely untouched the whole time by the fret leveling, which is evidence that it was a low spot. So that, in order to have the action that we were after, which on most other acoustic guitars can be set without too much trouble, this one had to be, this is paying hooky, that one had to be, the fretboard had to be leveled, which adds about an hour and 15-20 to the time it takes. But this is annoying. I mean, traditional classic guitar headstock style for parlour guitars, but can be a bit of a pain to get them off. As you can see, I'm going round in circles time after time. I've committed my, what was it? I've served my sentence, but I've committed no crime. That's the one. Anyway, so if you're the person who doesn't like me talking about nonsense, and I can't stand here in silence. I thought about it in the past. I thought about, yeah, if I was really trying to avoid or to please that one person out of 1,000 who really hates the sound of my voice, then I could probably put on headphones, listen to anything I want, audiobook, never talk to anyone the whole time, and just get the job done. And it would still serve the purpose of showing a customer what I did. It wouldn't offer any insights into why particularly, but at least it would you know, if you could see what went on. But to change it all for one person out of however many hundreds who really doesn't like or can't be bothered or doesn't know where the volume button is, it seems like a big deal. Now, what I'm going to do, yikes, methinks this is pretty grimy. Let's have a quick feel at what's built up here. Ew. Right. Well, oh God, that is a lot of goo. We could try and let's see if I can remove it with the naphtha. But if it's a lot of hassle, then sometimes it's just easier to scrape the goo off the fingerboard. But let's have a little look, see. I'll do the first two with naphtha, and if it doesn't get it the gunge off, then we may have to resort to scraping. Yeah, okay, it's sort of doing it. Not quite as good as scraping it, because that really does clean it up rapidly. But also, you know, it scratches the fretboard a bit. The slots on here are filthy already because of the strings that were going through them, unfortunately. But that's okay. We can brush them out a little bit. Grime. Okay, so after this, by the way, I checked the battery pack, and there's a split in the battery housing. It's a very flimsy little piece, so I put a bit of resin, UV curable resin on it to try and strengthen it up. But just the battery was dead, is dead anyway, so needs replacing. But just to be aware that there's this a little bit of repair. You probably hardly even see it, but it's important to point out. Right, I'm going to get a slightly cleaner cloth for the remainder of this thing, and we're going to give it a go over. And after this, I might rub some oil on there, but I don't think it will take much oil. So I'm going to clean off as much of the surface grime as will cooperate. There's quite a bit of grime coming off there, I have to say. And we'll run it along here. Saddle will probably fall out there, but that's not a problem. Otherwise, it's apart from being a bit grimy, it's in good condition finish-wise. It's a nice looking guitar, for sure. Right, that's that. Yep, saddle come out. Saddle back in. These out the way. Right, a tiny bit of oil for the board. What I might do as well is put a tiny bit of oil on the bridge, since it's looking very dry. Frets are in good condition, quite low, but they're clean damage, not a tiny bit of something at this end, but nothing to worry about. So if I just lift this out a minute. Okay, just a little bit of oil to darken it. And what I'll do now is I'll just wipe off the surface oil from here. Okay, now we are ready to tune up string up. We've got phosphor bronze Didarios, and these are 1047s, which hopefully won't stress or won't put so much load on the guitar, but will still sound good. So here we go. Now, I may look a bit ham-fisted in a minute. Oh, not like you already did, Sam. No, I'm going to look more ham-fisted because I'm not used to stringing up guitars with this type of headstock, so I maybe look like I'm floundering all over the place. All good. Well, as good as it can be. I mean, that's the best and last good action improvement. But I would think about that that humidity thing. As long as you're sure it's in a kind of dependable humidity range, then it should be absolutely fine. So what I do, let's see if it works exactly the same. I don't know if it does. Bear with me. I'm going to zoom in on there. Oops, not quite so much. I'm going to typically I go in the slot where I want it to go. I'm going to pull the string taut, and then I'm going to pull back the first fret. Now normally I would start winding by hand or by machine, but I don't really get an awful lot of choice here, so I'm going to hold this down and do this. That's okay. That's okay. Okay, sort of works. Not the easiest thing in the world to reach, but I'll worry about that in a minute. Let's zoom out a bit now because it's not so easy to see. So I guess all I'm saying is normally I put on about a fret's worth of wire onto the post by stretching it like that and then pulling it back. The problem is I've got to get access to this thing here, so like so. So I'm doing that a bit blind, but it seems to be going on all right, albeit in the wrong slot. So I'm going to continue like that as best I can to get these strings on. Like I say, I'm not used to doing it this way around. So tuning stability is down to, let's see if I can do it at a slightly different angle, is down to two primary things. The first is the condition or the quality and condition of your nut and how the nut slots are cut. That's 50% of your tuning stability. So what we've done here is put in a tusk nut, and we make sure that the slots are cut right. And the other 50% of your tuning stability will come from stretching your strings out once you've loaded them up. And if you think of each of those, getting the nut right is 50%, and getting the string stretch remove from the strings is the other 50%. We're going to do both of them. I've done the nut and we're going to do the stretching in a minute. Sort of getting there. Come on now. Pull back 1 fret's worth, hold it there, wind it on. Get the fingers out of the way in time. It sort of goes to where it wants to sit, these strings. It's a bit, you can't really control it the same way as you can a regular post. It sort of wants to travel to the away from me direction. Okay. Come back. Thank you. Go over there. Like that. So now we get completely tangled up and lost. And somehow I'm going to try and cut these extra bits off. I can't really reach in there that well, so I'm pushing it through to whichever is closest. It's best to cut it from this side, I think, not the other. And I think the same applies to all of these. If I can get them through. Oh, come along. Sorry about this. This is not a fiddle they normally have to do. It's a different. Through you go, and through you go. Right, let's just cut these little devils short. No, not that one. Yes, that one. Okay, you come off there. You come off there. You come off there. Handcrafted Alvarez. You come off there. You come off there. And you come off there. Now I've not cut them right straight to the back because I don't want them popping through or something, and I also don't want to end up tying knots in them. I hate that way of doing things too. So now I'm going to gently pull on them all to make sure they bed down into the peg slots and stuff. So I'm leaning my palm on the bridge as I make sure this is where I want it. Make sure they're all pressed down nicely, safely. Now I'm looking at these slots, and I'm not 100% on this Martin nut that these are all tilting backwards as much as I'd like, so I probably will do a bit of extra work on there, but I'm probably not going to do it here because I'm running out of battery. So let me just tune this up and do a stretch. It's not bad. Okay, so the stretching part of things, remember the nut is 50% of our tuning stability. This stretching operation is the other 50%. So you get this freshly installed strings and press them hard between thumb and forefinger, right? So the thumbs are pushing forward, both of them, and the forefingers are pushing back towards me. And do it for every string, and do it for all the strings. And basically, we're going to do it until the strings stop detuning. And once they stop detuning, we know that that's going to be it. No more pitch is going to leach out by detuning when we're playing it. So it's a little bit painful. You can get plastic string stretchers, but they don't give you any real feel to what you're doing, and I've broken more strings using the string stretchers than I have doing it by hand. And I do break strings stretching by hand because sometimes there's flaws in the strings, and other times they're very thin and they just don't like it. So all of that detuning, had we not manually taken it out, would have come out under its own steam. Whenever you bend a string, or in the case of an electric guitar, use the tremolo. Okay, so don't just go and play, get stuck in and stretch it again. And the more time you put in at this point, the more rewarded you're going to be with a guitar that plays and stays in tune. So I'm kind of nearly done on this. I'm going to take my nut files home with me, and I'm going to very carefully get some pencil graphite into the slots so I can see exactly where I'm cutting and where I'm not. I'm going to make sure that they cut backwards in case they're not already, because I have a feeling that it's a slightly different design nut, obviously. I mean, you can go onto your Tusk product catalogue and while you might possibly just find one out of several dozens, probably 100 or so, 150 different nuts, you may find one that says Alvarez, but it won't be the dimensions of this one. It's almost there. You can't go by that. It might be that they've made one or labelled up one for one model of Alvarez that they made a specific nut for, but absolutely you do not want to be buying that. You want to go by the string E to E spacing first, followed by the other variables. Okay, I'm close enough now. Now that one needs that nut taken care of, that slot. So I'm going to do those at home. But that's it for now. New action, cleaned up, still got good break angle over the high E, all much lower than it was before, as you can probably see. Back into a reasonable playable. We've got flattened out neck. We've got a new Tusk nut on there, and modified Martin one that needs a tiny bit of work doing on the slots, which I'll do at home. And that's it, folks. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.